It is officially my favorite time of year. Winter has arrived. But this is not just my favorite time of year because I love snow. It's actually my favorite time of the year because I have always loved the Christmas season, because there's a certain magic that just comes in the air, that comes in the spirit, comes in the soul. And I know so many people feel this as well, even people who are not necessarily pagan or spiritual. We all feel something about this time of year. And the ancient people of Europe, particularly when it comes to Scandinavia, they felt this too, even when their winters were much darker and harsher than ours. In this video, we're going to be talking about Yule, something I've talked about many times because I absolutely love it, but also because this is the time of year people are most interested in paganism, most interested in Scandinavian tradition, and most interested in the magic of the season. This video is going to be slightly different than the previous ones I made because this video is for people practicing Yule, celebrating Yule for the first time. So all of this is stuff that you can do this year to bring more of the Yuletide feeling into your home. So without further ado, let's go ahead and begin this discussion on my favorite time of the year, Yule. So we're going to start with the easiest piece of advice for you if you're celebrating Yule for the first time, and that is quite simply decoration. Obviously, I have this little Yule hat, but most people wouldn't recognize it as a Yule hat. They'd be like, oh, look at him, he's wearing a Santa Claus hat. No, this is my Yule hat. And then I have a Yule sweater as well, and I have all kinds of Yule decorations. And typically Yule decorations are anything natural. It's not any of this modern plastic stuff. It's all stuff that comes from the earth. It's natural trees, natural greens, things to do with snow, animals, and all of like the really old school looking decorations. And so when looking into decorating your home or assisting your family in decorating their home, look into getting more natural, traditional decorations rather than the modern plastic stuff that has become popular today. This rolls us nicely into my second piece of advice, which is ambience in general. Ambience is so very important to this time of year, but also to the Scandinavian people of the past and to the Scandinavian people of the present, because they have a long surviving tradition, particularly in Denmark, when it comes to hygge or hygge, which is a feeling of coziness that is mostly sought after during this time of year. Because when we look at Scandinavia, the winter time is so very dark. They get so limited sunlight every single day, and so they have to bring the warmth and the sun into the home and this feeling of love and coziness. Now, this is something that, of course, extends to the other Scandinavian countries to some degree, but Denmark is the one that really brings this term to the world when it comes to hygge today. Now, this is something I have an entire video about if you want to learn more, but the basics of hygge is candles. And so if you want to have more of a hygge or hyggeligt evening, you have candles, and you light lots of candles around the house. You turn off the TV, you turn off all the fluorescent lights, and you have a nice, cozy evening with board games, reading books, playing music, talking with friends and family. In our modern era, I mean, shoot, I'm 30 years old. So when I was a kid, I was excited to get like the Game Boy Advance and things like that. And I remember playing a lot of Game Boys and things like that when I was younger. But now as an adult, I look more for these conversations with family members, spending time with my grandparents who are luckily still alive, and sitting down with my family and enjoying their company. Because in the ancient past, Yule was actually one of the reasons it was so important is because winter was so harsh. You didn't know which of your family members were going to survive the winter. This was the time of year that typically the elderly would die the most often. And so when you got together at Yule, this might be the last time you saw some friends and family members. And now, luckily, we don't live in as drastic as times, but still spending time with our loved ones, particularly the elderly, I think during this time of year is a really important thing that connects us to the spirit of the season and something that goes back for generations. And hygge is a really great way in order to connect with that. And again, I highly recommend checking out my fuller video, but candles is the big thing, coziness, low technology evenings, and just creating this feeling of love and coziness within your home during this time of year. And all of this cozy talk sounds nice, and you're thinking, man, I wish there was a book that encapsulated all this that Jacob's talking about, and a nice cozy book format that I could even read to my kids around the Yule fire. Well, it just so happens that a few years ago I wrote a story called A Yule Story that is meant for relatively young people, meant for everyone, and it's about everything I'm talking about here. It's about family, it's about magic, it's got Yule near in there, it's got Odin in there, and it's got really good reviews, so thank you to everyone who's read it. This is a cozy story. It's not big and dramatic, it's got magic, it's got coziness, it's got Yule near, it's got Odin in there, and so it's really short, but truly this helps me as a channel continue to make this content and hopefully gives you a wonderful story to read during this time of year. And thank you to everyone who has supported this book throughout the last couple of years. And I hope anyone picking it up now enjoys my cozy little story about the Yule season. And we're bleeding nicely into the next piece of advice, which is sharing stories. So this time of year is so important to spend time with family, of course, but also hear stories of the family and share your own. Now, the world we live in is a little bit different. We can pull out our phones and we can communicate with our family and our friends any time of the year. But it wasn't that long ago that these didn't really exist. And so we mostly met our families when it came to the different holidays, when it came to Thanksgiving or Christmas. And so this is the time of year to share things. So I highly recommend, if you have something to share, instead of pulling out your phone and texting right away or calling and saying, hey, I have something to share, wait until Yule. And that way you can share across the table, across having a nice little feast with a drink, a warm cup of coffee or something like that with your family, and share great news or share something that happened. Think about all the cheesy Christmas movies that's when people say, oh, I'm getting married. Oh, we're pregnant. Oh, it's a little cheesy, but there's a reason for it. And I think if we delay the satisfaction of telling good news at Yule, I think we're gonna really embody this time of year and sharing that information. Make Christmas, make Yule special again. And I think that's the power of Yule, is that it has the ability to make this time of year special once again. Now, we've already mentioned it, but feasting is the next thing I would recommend. And when I say this, I really say don't go out to eat if possible. I know even my family is quite small these days. I don't have a large family like I used to. We used to have 16, 17 people that used to come to our Christmas dinners, and now we only have like 9 that come, and it's getting even smaller every single year. And so I find it very important for me to take up more of the cooking side of things. In the past, yeah, it was my grandmother's, it was my grandfather that would cook, but now they're getting old. And so we could have taken the route of like, well, we'll just go out, we'll order in, or we'll shrink the dinner. I've taken up that mantle. And I think that's really important for people in my generation, in their 30s, in their 20s, even 40s, of taking up the mantle of cooking for this time of year for the next generation. And it really is the passing down of recipes. And so if you haven't already begun that process, this is something that's really important, because ancestry is so important to Yule, and spending time with your family, of course, but also the recipes that come down from our family and cooking them this time of year. There is no better way to bring the spirit of the season to the table than to cook something that's been in your family for generations. And then the final part of this segment here is simply gift giving, but changing the way we give gifts. Again, moving away from the modern consumerism, moving more towards heartfelt gifts. This is something that I'm really trying to do personally in my own family practice when it comes to Yule, is giving handmade gifts. It's something that's been hard since I've been traveling, but I really want to start making things and taking the time. And I've always tried to, even if I have a Christmas card, write a heartfelt letter in the Christmas card to give to my family members, rather than just letting someone else use the words for me. And so any way possible you can to bring more of a personal touch to the gifts. Instead of just buying something, try to find a way to add your personal touch into the gift giving. And I should definitely say here as well, I understand not everyone comes from similar households, or doesn't have a household that's together. But even if you just do this with friends, I think it's just as powerful. The first pagan gathering I had was a Yule feast, which was like 4 people, like 6 years ago. I invited people to my house for a Yule feast with just some friends, and it went really well. And that's one of the things that started the community that now holds events under the Fellowship of Northern Traditions. It started with a dinner of 4 people, and now it's every year there's hundreds of people that come to these events all around the United States and around the world. And so what you just witnessed as we walk through this, you might be thinking, wait, this is all stuff that we do already. This is all stuff that's part of Christmas tradition. And that's because so much of Yule tradition is Christmas tradition. Now, I have an entire video on how pagan is Christmas, if you want to check that out as well, where I go into the individual details of the Christmas traditions and their origins. So a really fun video if you want to check that out. But ultimately, Christmas is very pagan at its heart. And you don't have to dive that deeply to see that Jesus was not born on December 25th. He was not born during this winter time. And a lot of the Christmas traditions were traditions that were brought here by the European people that came from Europe into the United States and started Christmas traditions, particularly the Germanic people. And a lot of those traditions are steeped in the pagan origins of their culture and traditions. Paganism at its core is about community. It's about love. It's about family. It gets this image, oh, it's about human sacrifices or whatever. And this is just something that's been put on it over the years. At the end of the day, paganism is about a return to the ancient traditions and religions and beliefs of the farmers of the world. And so people that cared about family, people that cared about the land. This was not the religion of nobles. This was not the religion of the high and mighty. This is the religion of the everyday people. And I think Yule should be the religion for the everyday person and the everyday family. So at the very end here, for those that want to dive deeper and you want to do more of a spiritual stuff, you actually want to do rituals and things like that, what I can share with you is what we typically do. So we with the Fellowship of Northern Traditions, we have a big Yule gathering every single year. There might be still spots open if you go check out our website. We have a few Yules, I know, one in Texas, Wisconsin, and in Kentucky as well. And so be sure to check that out if you're interested. But typically what we do is we do an invocation for the land, because we're on native land, so we always do that. We do an honoring of Odin. Odin is typically considered the Yule figure. One of his names is Yule Father or Yule. And so he's definitely a being associated with Yule and its celebration. And then we also celebrate Frigg and her handmaidens to some degree, or some kind of goddess ritual, because in neo-pagan practices, the Mother's Night seems to be something that's become popular. I don't know its origins. I actually haven't made a video on that one yet either. But honoring the female ancestors, the seer blow, is something that is important during this time of year. So we typically do an Odin ritual and a ritual to the female ancestors as well. And then our third one we always do is a Suna night, where we stay up all night on one of the longest nights. So either December 21st or whenever we have our Yule celebration, we stay up all night and watch those morning sun rise and give an offering to Suna to celebrate the return of the sun. Because this is something that is also important to the ancient pagan people, is ones that were observing things at Stonehenge or the other pagan monuments around the world, like New Grange, is the winter solstice was one of the most important things to them, because this is the rebirth of the sun. And so celebrating the rebirth of the sun to some degree is something you can also do to honor this time of year. And so any of these things you can do within your own personal ritual. Have a night where you stay up all night and celebrate the sun in the morning. Do something for Odin, do something for the mothers and the female ancestors, if you want to add that extra spiritual lens on top of your Yule traditions. But ultimately, Yule is about tradition, it's about family, it's about love, it's about coziness. It's about the magic that we all feel. If you're watching this video, you're watching it because you feel this magic that I do. That gets me excited. This is the first snow of the year I've seen, and I grabbed my camera and I ran outside because I knew I wanted to record this. Yule is about feeling the magic, harnessing that magic, and taking it in as much as we can to get us through the dark of winter. So I hope this has been helpful for you. I hope it helps you for your first Yule. As you can tell, I have many videos. I've mentioned many of them here, so I'll link them all down below. I have an entire Yule playlist. I decorate my channel all in Yule. So truly, if you want to learn more about the season, I have many videos for you. But ultimately, get out there, cook some food, talk with your family, talk with your friends, love people, light a candle, and you're gonna have an amazing Yule. So with that, thank you so very much for joining me for this video, and I'll see you in the next video here at the Wisdom of Odin. And until then, happy Yule.